Alright, so the last video I made was like over 40 minutes long. I got a little carried away, so this time I decided I was just going to make a quick one. That way I can kind of demo the trigger stuff, because that's the stuff I really care about, and then kind of just so people will actually watch it and see what's going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of create a little area here where we can do some cool stuff. If you haven't seen, like, the 40-minute one is long, but like the first 13 minutes is kind of just like all the geometry and the objects, placing them all in, and Rails and how all that stuff works. So if you want to see that stuff, we have cool like alpha blending and things like that. We can show you that in that other video. That way, you know, won't waste your time if you just want to see the trigger stuff, which is fine. So there's a little demonstration of the blending. You can see two textures blended, yada yada yada. Okay, so real quick, I just want to kind of demonstrate how, like, let's say a door works. So for the trigger system here, let me just kind of give you a background. So let me drop the player in here. Triggers are basically they're made up of events, conditions, and actions. So let's look at this trigger here. This guy, the Penny, already has a trigger, and her event, you can actually see the events listed in this tab here, or in this group here. Conditions are listed in this group, and actions are listed in this group. There's no conditions right now, but there's an event and there's an action. There can be as many events, many conditions, and many actions in a trigger as you want. So for this trigger that's already defaulted to Penny, it's basically to have the camera follow her, or essentially snap to her right in the beginning, and then follow her around. So the way that works is the first event that she has here that this trigger is going to receive is the map initialization. So there's a couple of categories here: game, object, region, and rail. In the game, map initialization is one of the events, and it actually gets triggered when I press E. If you're using the actual game submission, it's P. And it will basically fire that event, or fire off that message. This event listens for the message, and then it'll, since there's no conditions, it'll go right through that, and then it'll just do the actions. In this case, the action is to, as you can read here, it says forces the camera to follow an object. We give it an object to follow. In this case, it's the owner object, at a certain depth and a certain speed for the pan. The way that the objects work here, you can see triggering component, owner object, triggering object, and get object by ID. So whenever an event occurs, there's a series of variables that'll go along with it. So let's say an object enters a region. That region is going to be attached to the trigger here, this trigger here, so that in a way that when the event is set, that triggering region is going to be that region that was entered. So when a player, like let's say a Penny enters a region, that region will be the triggering region, and she will be the triggering object, which you can actually see here. It doesn't show triggering region because it's not an object, and we're not going to follow a region. So, and then that'll be this triggering object here. So if it was an event that involved a triggering object, it'll actually you can use that object. Triggering component is just for, like, if a door opens, that the CMP door, the actual door action of opening, that's part of a component, so that'll be the triggering component when that event occurs. The owner object is actually the owner of the trigger, and Penny is the owner of this trigger, so that's why we're having it follow her. And then the get object by ID obviously just gets an object by an ID. Okay, so that's kind of the quick rundown here. So if I press E and I start the game up, you'll see that the camera will pan right to her and then follow her. So that's what the camera follow action does. Real simple, not much to it. It's really basic, and that's kind of why it's just by default. You don't want to, people don't want to just always do that. But of course, you can turn it off if you want. So you can either turn off the entire trigger just by turning that off, or you can do it by event. You can just not listen for that specific event, or you could just not do that action. Either one of those three will actually stop that from happening. So as you can see now, the camera doesn't follow her anymore. So simple. Okay. So let's do something a little bit more advanced. Like, let's actually have it, when she enters a region, we'll do something. So let's go ahead and create a new region. We'll just put one right here, like that. And then we'll just do a quick little, let me create a new object here that can actually, because the triggers are actually a part of an object. The triggers are a part of a component that you can place on an object. So the custom object is actually just a blank object, essentially just has a sprite and a transform. Very simple, and also, it by default has triggers. So you can either, it'll already be a part of the object, or you can just add it. It's very simple. So we're going to do a new trigger here. We'll have it refresh the window. We'll open that up. and then it just blanks. See, there's no event, no conditions, and no action. So very simply, all we can do is what we can do is just add a new event. We edit this event to say, for instance, region, and then object enters region. There's object enters and object exits, but we're going to look at object enters. The condition for this is we want to make sure it is Penny when she comes in. So we can either do that by checking her ID against the triggering object's ID, which we can see if we click on her, we know that her ID is 2. So we can either do an integer comparison where we say the triggering object is equal to the triggering object's ID is equal to 2, and that'll trigger the actions if the entering object is in fact Penny. Or we can do it by, let's say, by string. So we can actually take the triggering object's type. You can actually look at all of the components, and every component has a series of variables as well. So, like for instance, player. Well, if I look in the integer, it only shows what type is in there. So there's a number of variables per component, but it only shows the ones that are relevant. So, for instance, if we went from triggering object, we went and we can either do the ID, which is an integer, or look at one of these possible components here. So, for instance, let's look at the player component. There's the owner ID, which would be the object's ID, the object who owns the component, and then, for instance, her goggles. So we can actually determine what her goggles are. We can determine how many lives she has. We can do it based off of how many chemicals she's collected or how many chemicals she needs. So we can do very, very quick checks that way. Very, very, very good stuff. So, what we are going to do, we'll do it by type because that's what I like to do. String, triggering objects, type is equal to player. So that way we know if a player enters the region, we'll fire off an action. No big deal. I'm going to try to keep this short because last one was really long, so I'm going to try to keep it like around 10 minutes tops. So really quickly, I'm just going to kind of speed through this here. Let's say what we wanted to do is we wanted to open this door here. Let me just add a door real quick. Very, very simple door here. Select it and then move it like right here. Actually, I'll put it right in the middle. So when you enter the region here, it'll actually open the door for you. So let me put it right in the center, and then I'll actually scale this region up a little bit here. Let me move it so that it'll be like a door at a grocery store or something like that. Yeah. So let me right about there, and then actually I'm a perfectionist, so I'm going to try that. There we go. Okay, and then top will actually lower a little bit, and boom, perfect. So then I'm going to just put like I'll just put a wall up here. That way, you know, the player can't just like go running through it, or jumping through it rather. Okay. And let me grab the object and move the object over here. And then, of course, if we want it, we can do another layer, switch that layer, and we can actually draw on top of this. Oh, wow, I didn't even do a complete... What a tool. I'll do that again. There we go. So now we get an actual square going on here. And then we'll do a layer on top so that way it actually hides the door whenever the door comes up. So, and then we just have to move this to -0.01 and move it right to the front, and then that way the door won't go on top of our terrain. Okay, so, and we need to just quickly update the collision lines. Let's go back to layer 0, update collision lines, and now, as we can see here, we'll just turn them on. You can see the collision lines here, so that way she can't actually just go running through that stuff. And I'm going to turn back on her trigger real quick, because I actually want her to be, the camera to be following her. Okay, so... Can't go through there, can't go through the door, can't go through the wall there, no big deal. Perfect, that's what we want. Okay. So now we're gonna continue working on this trigger here. Just make sure that's the right trigger. It is. Okay, so the action that event is going to invoke is the door open. So we're actually going to do new action here. We choose what action type we want. There's follow, dialogue play, dialogue stop, game end, logic if then. So basically logic if then is basically like another trigger but without an event. So it actually allows you to determine multiple conditions and then multiple actions to when this trigger invokes, it'll just check additional conditions and then do an action based off of those conditions if you want to. And it's not just like you can add any of these at any time to this action list and also delete them at any time. Object door, which is the one we're going to use. Object integer, kill, move, player action, which we can remove control from the player, and yada yada yada. Show a timer, if we want to show the timer in like the top section up here, we can do that. We can spawn, we can also toggle and activate, deactivate components on specific objects. So let me just grab the door here, and we will do get object by ID. The door's ID is going to be, actually let me not select regions for a second. Oh, down here, regions, grab the door. The door is 5, great, and we will just do a toggle. Actually, we'll just do open. And then we'll do another event that says if the player leaves the region, it'll close it. But as of right now, let's just check. And also, let me set the door properties because we actually have to set it. So we want it to go. Let's do 58 pixels. I know it's the actual image is 64 tall, so let's just do 50. I'd rather like have it stick out a little bit. It looks cool. And then we'll do direction is 90 degrees up, and then speed is going to be 80. We don't want it to auto close. We don't want it to start opened. And then that way when you enter this region, it'll just open the door and it'll stop like around there-ish. And then let's have it where when it exits, let me see, new condition that when she exits the region, it will actually close it again. Object exit, new condition, edit, and we wanted to do, let's do string for value of triggering object is player, and then we can do new action, door, we'll do get object by ID 5, and we'll do close. Very good. Okay. Opens up, closes. Opens up, closes. Very simple. So that's the kind of stuff that you can do with triggers. It's very, very quick and very easy. In the longer video, I showed about 30 minutes of this and all the kind of stuff we can do. And actually, it was only really about like a half or maybe even like a third of what we could actually do with the trigger system. There's a lot of stuff. It's very easy to add actions and add variables to objects, to different components, and do all kinds of things like that. There's a couple other objects you can use here, like counter here, and timer, and other things like that that'll actually do things on events, on specific timer-based stuff. Like, let's just do real quick a timer, just real fast. Timer, let's have it activated and have it loop every second. Let's make it actually loop every 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And we'll have the trigger for this guy. I just want to have it toggle open and close the door. It's going to be real simple. New event. The object's timer expires. If we get an event when the object's timer expires, and we're just going to check to make sure that it is it's this object's timer. So we're going to do the triggering object's ID is equal to the owner object. So when the timer expires, the triggering component is set to that timer component, and the triggering object is set to that timer component's owner object. So that's good. This guy will be comparing the IDs, and they should be the same for this event to actually invoke, for the trigger to invoke. And we'll just have the object door, of course, toggle, and we'll do get object by ID, and it's still door 5. And then I'm actually just going to turn off this guy's trigger here. Edit, enable, edit, enable. So that way it doesn't actually do it based off that anymore. So this guy's basically useless now. So alright, quick check. When I open it up here, start the game up, it should take every 2 seconds, it'll toggle the door. So there's 2 seconds open, 2 seconds closed, 2 seconds open, and now I can do that. So that's very simple to do, very quick and very easy. You can do a lot of stuff. Maybe on this one we actually want it to spawn a crate. We can do that, spawn object, and we can have it spawn a crate. Crate, oops, too many things there. Crate on the owner object, and that'll just spawn a crate right at the position of this guy here. So we can say every 2 seconds, door will open and the crate will spawn. Woo, how fun. Another crate. And another crate. And another crate. So you can see how we can do kinds of stuff like that. So anyway, it's already been 13 minutes, so I'm going to cut it short. If you want to see more about this stuff, I can do more demos of it later. And I'll definitely have I have more demo maps and demo levels that are already made to show you. So, and it actually shipped with the game too. So if you want to open up the level editor in the game, in the released game, you just press P, and you can just go File over here on the side. You can just go Load Level. It'll actually pull up a file, Windows File dialog, and you can actually just go to the final levels and then tests. And then there's a bunch of demos in there that you can actually look at that show all the tests that I did for these different actions. So okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.